What is going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing better than the PC port for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, because I'll tell you right now, I am barely surviving the frame rate of this game, which has just completely missed the mark.
I won't miss. I won't miss.
Now, the last Star Wars game, Jedi Fallen Order, it was not a perfect PC port. It had some stuttering issues and some CPU utilization problems because it's Unreal Engine 4 and it's sort of to be expected. It doesn't really scale well to all of the cores, and it will typically just like cane like one or two cores very hard and you won't get full GPU utilization. And we're seeing that again here, but even worse with Star Wars Jedi Survivor, as I was regularly seeing my GPU at around 50 to 60, maybe 70% utilization at all times, even throwing on effects like ray tracing to further try to utilize the GPU portion of it, as there was seemingly a bottleneck there from the CPU. And yes, while I was using a 9900K, this is something that is being widespread even on much higher end processors like the 13900K or a 7900X 3D, you name it. Any of the top end processors are still going to be limited in this game because of its core utilization. And while having faster instructions per clock on those newer processors will, help it power through with some higher frame rates there, they're still going to be extremely limited, and you're not going to see full GPU utilization in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, at least until there is a patch of some sort, or we get a new driver from NVIDIA, AMD, or what have you, to sort of fix the issues that we're having here that you could see here in the overlay on this game, which is, quite evident with the frame rate here. Now, stutter-wise, there's some early on stutter in the game, but it's at this point with the frame rate hovering in the 40s and 50s, sometimes it can be hard to tell what's a stutter and just what's a really poor frame rate because of the very poor GPU utilization. But overall, I still found the game to be playable, if I can say that. Yes, it was below 60 FPS pretty much the entirety of my playing time for the first couple of hours playing the game, but it was relatively consistent, I would say, around that 50 frames per second. So, it was sitting there at 50 FPS on a 4090 at 4K with no ray tracing on. I didn't have ray tracing on because it doesn't look good and it doesn't run well. We'll talk more about that after the graphics options, but that's a whole issue in of itself. The game doesn't have DLSS. It only has FSR, which also doesn't look very good, and we'll talk more about that. But the game just has a whole host of issues here for the PC port, so definitely be cautious moving forward if you're thinking about picking this up, or you can always try it out if you have EA Play. They have, I believe they'll have probably the 10-hour trial, or if you have the EA Play Pro membership, you can just go ahead and download the whole thing. It's like 120 plus gigabytes, so be aware of that. But big performance issues with this game, so definitely know that most people are going to be running into some sort of issue, I'm sure, or utilization issue here and limitation on their hardware for Jedi Survivor. Now, jumping into the graphics options menu here, you can see I'm currently running up at 4K, and we do have a decent amount of options in here that we can adjust, and the highest available presets for everything is Epic, and I did try toggling around between like the Epic, high, medium presets, and there really was not a massive effect on the frame rate, and the visuals did take a hit. Even just dropping it down to high, I noticed a pretty big difference in terms of fidelity. But other options in here, this is just an overall graphics fidelity option here. Then we've also got options for view distance, shadow quality, anti-aliasing with no definition as to what type of anti-aliasing it's using. And they don't give any examples here in the, in the side panel here where they could have maybe shown what these effects were changing and the impact it was having on the game, or the GPU usage, VRAM effects, like we've seen a lot of other PC ports. Stuff that would have been nice to see here, but there's already so much other things wrong here. I'm not going to nitpick over this stuff. If they could have just gotten the performance right and this was the way that it was, I really wouldn't be complaining about it, but it's just another thing on top of everything else. We've also got texture quality, visual effects, post-processing, foliage detail, field of view, no percentages here, or degrees, I should say, but they do have some options here. Mine defaulted to wider, but they have the default, narrower, narrowest, and it also goes up to wider and widest. So I was playing on wider for all of the video you're seeing, but it goes a little wider than that if it's something you want to utilize. VSync, we have a ray tracing toggle here on or off, so no different quality settings for that. It's just on or off. It's very taxing, and it looks quite grainy when it's on. And unfortunately, FSR did not help to boost the performance. I thought with having the extra GPU headroom, it would use it, but it really did not. And it did not help boost the performance at all. And I'll do some toggles with that here in a minute. And we've also got some other effects down here, things for color and brightness, other stuff that I have turned off because it makes the game look worse, like motion blur, film grain, chromatic aberration, camera shake I left on, didn't seem to bother me, and ambient camera sway I did turn off. It didn't sound that appealing, so I just didn't use it. And you can hide the HUD if you want to. So those are all of the options that we have here. So let's go ahead and jump in game and bring up our performance HUD. So you can see I don't have ray tracing on here. I'm at 4K native, and I'm getting about 50 FPS. And this is pretty consistent with what I see in most of the gameplay. It will come down and up from here or there, but it will mostly stay right around here, and there's not really too many big frame drops or anything. It will come down a bit, but G-Sync or variable refresh rate monitor will definitely help. With the frame rate fluctuating there, in just keeping the game overall running smooth-ish. Just saw some artifacts there. What was that? And I might fall here. No, I didn't fall. Okay, but we're seeing the GPU here is only at 62% usage. The CPU overall, the 9900K is at 26%. We're using almost 16 gigs of VRAM and 16 gigs of system memory. No, 16 gigs of VRAM, but it's allocating 16 gigs, but using 10, and then RAM 16 for the system. So I was right, it was 16 gigs for the system. So that's what we're looking at there on that. And overall, it just leaves a lot to be desired, really, at the end of the day, is the performance could certainly be a lot higher from where it is right now. If that extra 40% of performance that we're leaving on the table there, that would if you added 40% of performance to 50 FPS, then we're sitting up around 70, 80 frames there. So then we'd be very comfortable and maybe have some headroom to go ahead and turn on ray tracing and utilize that. And maybe bump up the visuals a little. But as it is, though, the game looks very good. I don't really have any complaints in regards to how the game looks or how it plays. I actually thought from what I've played so far, I thought the gameplay was quite enjoyable. And I would even consider maybe picking it up on PS5 if they can't iron out this performance. I had access to this on EA Play, so I didn't get a code or anything. It's just on the EA Play Pro. So I gave it a try on there. But I would maybe consider, picking it up. Oh man, I just died from falling. I would maybe consider picking it up on PS5 if they don't fix these performance issues. Because as it stands right now, I wouldn't want to play it like this on PC, through the entire playthrough. If it's running at a smooth 60 frames per second on PS5, which I think that it is, I believe I saw reports of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then I would probably opt to just pick it up on there if that's going to be the case, which is disappointing because obviously I have a much more powerful PC than what a PS5 is. When you look in terms of the technical specs, I have significantly better hardware here, so I should be able to get 60 frames per second. I feel at 4K and max settings, not even using ray tracing. I feel like I should certainly be able to get a lock 60 there with some headroom to spare there. Some room to spare on the GPU, but that's just not the case with this piss poor attempt at a PC port here from the guys at Respawn and Electronic Arts and whoever handled the port for them. Hopefully we can get a patch for this in the very near future. As of right now, I would say steer clear of Jedi Survivor if the performance is going to stay the way that it is, or if we can get a driver update. There was like a day zero patch, like I had initially downloaded it, and then there was about a 2 gigabyte patch last night when I reopened the EA app, so there was a patch of some sort, but it does not appear to have addressed the performance issues which had been previously mentioned in some earlier reviews and content that I saw coming out of Germany. I believe it was PC Games Hardware Germany. They had a early performance video where they showed some issues with Jedi Survivor and the utilization, and still here with this day 1 or day 0 patch, we are still seeing it, and this is live now to the public on EA Play Pro. So this is how it's running. I'd steer clear of it, paying full price for sure, but try it on EA Play Pro if you got it, and if you're curious in playing it, it's still playable. It's just not ideal. It could be a hell of a lot better. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time. Oh wait, and I forgot, I wanted to show you guys ray tracing stuff on and off. I am such a noob. Totally forgot all about that. Those early morning edibles, man, sometimes they get to you. So let's go ahead and whack on ray tracing here And that takes a second for it to actually to come on, so you can tell it is actually doing something there in the background and enabling the ray tracing. But we'll just go ahead and throw that on for shits and giggles. And now you can see we're getting about 40 FPS. So that's where we're getting now. And visually, it doesn't really look a whole lot different. And also, it's supposed to be like reflections and transparent reflections, but it apparently doesn't even show... sorry, what's it called? It doesn't reflect the lightsaber, which is like the coolest thing that you would want to have reflections on. Like it'll reflect the character model, but not your lightsaber. I'm trying to find like a glass window. That's not going to show it up. That's like frosted or something. So if I can get to a glass window, I'll show you guys, but it basically will not reflect the lightsaber, which is just beyond disappointing, to be fair. So no luck on finding any windows there to do the reflections. But as you can see, right now we're getting 33 FPS. So real quick, I got this little mini boss fight. I'm going to go ahead and whack on FSR before we get out of here and close out the video, because I wanted to show that this really is not doing a whole lot. I'll put it on quality, which is usually what I would use on with DLSS, and I would expect if I'm getting 50 FPS with DLSS, I would expect to go to somewhere at least above 60 frames. At the very least. Probably more so into the 70s or 80s, but at the very least above 60 frames is where I would expect to be if I'm getting already decent frame rate. So let's see what the quality can get us. Again, we were with ray tracing on, so we were down in the 30s. But let's see what we can go ahead and get. Let's see what we can go ahead and get boosted up to here. And we're still getting 35 FPS, like the exact same performance. Pretty much the exact same performance. So very, very disappointing. And we'll go ahead and switch off the ray tracing now real quick and see what that does. The ray tracing, I saw VSync there. So VSync is off. FSR is on. Let's just go performance. Let's go performance. So that's like 1080p. This is an RTX 4090, effectively playing Jedi Fallen Survivor at 1080p with upscaling. All right, let's see if this can get us a smooth performance. Nope, 50 frames per second. Oh, the only thing that it did was lower our GPU utilization more. Now we're getting 30% utilization, but we're still getting the same exact frame rate, and the visual quality is poorer. This is Jedi Fallen Survivor, folks, in a fucking nutshell. Are you serious right now, bro? Like, are we serious with this? Like, let's go ahead and turn this back off. Let's go ahead and turn this back off, useless FSR and dog shit ray tracing. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Oh, where are we at now? 52. I actually gained performance going back to native 4K. Turning off the 1080p FSR, I gained frames. I just gained frames and feel better about my GPU sitting at 70 FPS, and the game looks sharper and feels better overall. Like, yeah, it's native 4K now, no ray tracing, but at least it's playing relatively smooth. I mean, I can play the game like this. It's not impossible to play it. I'm just saying it's not ideal, and the fact that the FSR and stuff that's supposed to fix the performance doesn't do anything makes me question as to why the fuck they even put it in the fucking games. It's like we've gone backwards. I swear in the past it used to be like NVIDIA would lock down titles and you would see only GameWorks stuff in the titles and no AMD stuff. And nowadays, you'll see an NVIDIA title that'll have tons of NVIDIA features, DLSS, frame generation, but it'll also have FSR, AMD dynamic, rate shading or whatever, and it'll have Intel XeSS. It'll have everything, not just the one. And now it's AMD's all locked down on this, on titles like Far Cry 6 and a couple of others as well. It just seems to like the ones that are just all locked down with all the AMD techs tend to kind of suck right now, which is very unfortunate. So, yeah, good game here, but bad PC port, and it's let down further by not having the technology which is so readily available, like a DLSS SDK, which I'm sure the developers could have accessed and utilized in this engine and got DLSS working and giving us a better performance, at least for NVIDIA users, or have a better implementation of FSR, or better utilize the CPU or something. But we need something here in order to help with this frame rate, frame generation, whatever. There's technology available to all developers to be able to implement in their games, and in a big AAA title like this, we're not talking about like two guys in a garage here who are incapable of utilizing this technology. We're talking about Electronic Arts and Respawn Entertainment. You're telling me this huge AAA publisher and developer don't have the resources to implement DLSS and other technology in order to give us a better performance in this game, which may, for whatever reason, maybe we just have to accept that it has a dog shit engine and it is what it is for right now because that's what they had been developing it on already. So that's what we're stuck with. Fine. But technology exists to improve that. So why not let us have it and just instead of locking it down to just one, which is doing apparently nothing, if nothing other than actually making the performance worse. I mean, they tried, but they missed, and sometimes you miss.
I won't miss. I won't miss.
I won't miss. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. I hope to catch you next time. Peace.